think you have to be a special kind of crazy to start a restaurant. As much as I was like, oh, let's go back to Alaska, we just kind of slowly found ourselves falling in love with Utah. But I just got really good at helping these restaurants go viral. Like, stop spending your money at giant chains and write reviews. So fun going in, being able to go into the kitchen, meet with the owners, the Arizona Coyotes to Utah permanently. And it was kind of a really random move. And I was like, I got to be involved with this somehow. Yeah. Like, if you're good at it, making yourself uncomfortable will make you great at it. So great. Another white guy started a podcast. No, I'm just kidding. Mostly from what I hear, because we do have an insane amount of restaurant concepts that happen here in Utah. It's their American dream. And they've been told about the American dream their whole life. They just want to come here and live it.
Is it right?
But when you say it in a New York accent and you've been to prison, just go support local. That's my biggest thing.
What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Small Lake City Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Nilsson, and this week's guest is someone who has been able to meet a lot of the restaurateurs and entrepreneurs very intimately through his Instagram account, Utah Food Finds, where he interviews restaurateurs, asking them how they came up with the concept, what kind of food it is, where to find them, and a little bit more about their story. Now, not only has he been talking to restaurant entrepreneurs for a long time now, he has also been involved with the NHL coming to Utah. As soon as it came here, he decided to start NHL Utah Instagram account, which turned into a podcast, which turned to him being part of the media team that gets to talk to the players a lot. So a lot of great insights of the food and beverage and restaurant scene in Salt Lake and how it's grown, and a lot of great places for you to try out. But also a lot about what's going on with the Utah Hockey Club, the unique situation that we're in, and what we can expect for the rest of the season based on what we've seen so far. So a truly great guy who loves being in Utah and has spent a lot of time in other places for him to truly appreciate it. So I think this is one that everyone's going to be able to relate to, and hopefully everyone can find a new local business that they can go support. So enjoy. My ADHD is a wild ride of things like that where I'm like, oh, cool, let's make sure everything's done. And then I'll get distracted by one thing, and then one thing leads to another thing. And then next thing you know, I can't remember what thing I was supposed to be thinking at that time.
Yeah. And then it's 12:19. You realize that you haven't taken your ADHD medication.
Thankfully, I know I did.
I did not.
It's always one of those like, oh no, it's like my kryptonite. I'll be like, why can't I focus today? Be like, that's right, I forgot. But like, thankfully, like I have like if there's one thing that I have like pretty buttoned up in my life, it's my morning like schedule, because I'll always do like one of the best habits in my life is I go to the gym like every morning. Like that is always like rain, shine, tired, not. I will always find my way to the gym, which means before that I have to take pre-workout, and usually I'm like, oh, pre-workout, I'll take my Adderall. So my brain and my heart are just instantly like, time to wake up.
Yep.
But it's
forced to wake up. Yeah.
It is a defibrillator to my brain and my probably my heart to an extent, but it's working.
Yeah.
Dude, Michael, I'm excited to have you here because honestly, I was thinking about it the other day that I've been kind of caught in this like pigeonhole of just, and I don't want to say this in like a negative way, but like a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners themselves. Like I know that you are a business owner, but that's not necessarily why I wanted to have you on the podcast. Yeah. Because I mean, businesses are great and they're a big part of what makes, let's call it an economy or a city amazing, but also there's a lot of interesting perspectives and backgrounds and points of view that add value, more than, just like an entrepreneur's point of view. And especially with you, having Utah Finds and and having NHL Utah, you have a very great perspective on a lot of things that are relevant right now. Yeah. And similarly, when you go sit down and you talk to, I don't even know how many people you've had on Utah Finds so far. Yeah. But it goes from like stories and anecdotes to like, oh, there's all of a sudden there's all of these data and all of these points and all of a sudden are putting together more of a narrative and like these trends than just, talking to a bunch of restaurants and entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Utah Food Finds has been honestly one of the funner things I've done in the last, I don't know, just in my career. I call it a career, but it's more of just like a side hobby. Essentially. I absolutely love, to the point you're just making, I love talking to entrepreneurs and I love just kind of picking their brains. So, I started reviewing food and then I was like, this is not as interesting as I want it to be. Yeah. And I'm not as interesting as I want myself to be. But these people are like the heart and soul of, like you're saying, an economy. So I being around restaurants so much in my profession, I just kind of realized that restaurant ownership is the scrappiest form of entrepreneurship, and it sucks and it's hard, and the margins are really slim, and people don't show up to work, and you have to deal with not only, like, in my business, I have really low overhead and I get to work from home, and like my costs are like some equipment and like gas in my vehicle sometimes to go visit clients. But other than that, relatively low overhead. In restaurant ownership, you have to worry about product flow and like making sure that you have enough food to serve that day, and rent and payroll and like all this laundry list of things. And so they're just interesting human beings. And I think you have to be a special kind of crazy to start a restaurant. And most of these people are crazy, but they're also extremely special human beings. And that's what it's been a joy.
Totally.
To say the least, to be around these people.
And like I'm one thing I've been thinking a lot about recently, and it came in context of concerts, because this summer was probably the most concerts I've ever been to. And one thing I realized,
why is that?
Two, it was one of my goals was to go to more shows, because I love music. I love live music, but just found myself in this habit of like, oh, there's a show, like, do I want to go? It's going to take just like slowly talking myself out of it. And then I'd see stories and be like, oh, I should have gone. And just knew that I wanted to be around that energy more, because I think it is a fun energy that brings people together. But also it was fun because like I like started to like plan out shows, because I was the typical person, Q ADHD, where I wouldn't know about a show, and then I'd see people's stories like, I would have wanted to go, but I didn't know. Yeah. And I mean, that's why I started the newsletter for Small Lake City, to give everybody else an idea, be like, heads up, here's what's coming up in the next 2 weeks. You don't want to be that person to see a story and not realize you didn't go. But then I started going to shows, and I was like, wait, this is like really expensive if I want to go to like, let's say a show a week. Yeah. And then I was kind of like, well, how can I do this? And little by little, I reached out to just like the USANA Amphitheater Instagram page, which is like, oh, no, you email this guy. And then next thing I know, talking with Trent Falcone, who he's the like regional director of marketing for Live Nation. Yep. And he's like, hey, I have to get rid of, and based on your face, I can tell you that, I'm
sort of, I'm familiar with him. My job in college, I was in the radio industry.
Got it.
So I just show burnout. I experienced that. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Then there's like, the opposite end of the spectrum. Like my goal is to not go to any shows. I'm done with this. Yeah. And so it's fun. He's like, hey, listen, I have so much money I have to spend on marketing. I have so many tickets I have to give away. Love to work with you to do it. And so, I mean, it's just one of those typical trade-offs. Like, you give away tickets, I'll give you tickets. And so little by little, I was like, I get to go to all these fun shows. And the same thing happened with like reaching out to LNE and kind of a lot of the other venues and promoters, and just kind of realizing that I now have this thing that can help me solve this gap. So it's like went from like this goal of like, how am I going to make this happen without like going into debt, and then being like, all right, we can make this happen. Yeah. So
a show a week for 52 weeks a year is a small economy. That's a lot of money. In fees alone. Actually.
Ticketmaster's like, you want to go to another one?
Yeah.
Come on.
Come to more shows.
Marketing, ads. Yeah. So it was fun. I mean, I saw, honestly, see how many of my I went to like a lot of bucket list shows for me actually this year. I went to like Blink-182 was one. Tight. That was one because I live 1 point.
That was one I needed to go to, dude.
And I knew I was going to be that person if I did.
I'm the same way. I have 2 kids though, so I'm just like,
it's a whole different story.
Ooh, yeah. Like we went to tons of shows, but Tom DeLonge was chasing aliens when we were like really involved in the music industry here, because my wife worked for Broadway Media and was a graphic designer there. So then I worked for the same business, just doing like kind of show production and a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So that was when I was like, I probably should have gone to see Blink-182. Like that's one of my childhood.
Oh, that's like
bands that I would listen to on repeat in high school and still do.
Yeah. It's a classic.
Yeah.
You'd be screaming out like, work sucks.
I know, but
like, I know. And then you didn't know. And now we know.
Their recent album, I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah.
I was very about it. I was like, just tour what you already got.
Maybe
that's the wrong thing. I know that they're being creative, so I don't want to be a hater. So.
Well, on the other, like devil's advocate to that, I was hanging out with some friends, like, oh, have you listened to the new Linkin Park songs? And I was like, no. They're like, listen, we know there's controversy around the new lead vocalist being a woman, but then I listened to it, I was like, I'm in. I'm 100% in.
It was surprising.
Yes.
Yeah, I was actually disappointed that I liked it. I was like I'm not a massive Blink-182 fan for any reason. I'm mainly just aware of the Transformer movie songs. Fair. But I mean, growing up during that era, obviously I would listen to them, but yeah, I was disappointed that I liked it. I was like, dang it, this is actually really good.
Yeah, like that year, the years of like my 10 years old to 12 years old was when I listened to a lot of Blink-182, a lot of Linkin Park. Has been like after my parents got divorced, new neighborhood, like emo Eric was just there, and just feel so. It's like fun to see, like to go to that show. It was a last minute game time decision. Like I was literally looking at tickets on, I can't remember what the app. Anyway, probably just Ticketmaster, and I was like, if it gets below this, and there was one ticket on this one like fifth row that was like 50% of what the other tickets were. I'm like, okay, done, we're there. Yeah. And it was the first show I actually went to alone, which opened me up being like, oh, I can do this and this is fine. Like, it's not, I mean, maybe people might think it's weird, but I don't. If I want to go to a show and no one wants to go with me, then I'm going to go.
Sure.
So Blink-182 was one, and that was, I mean, so cathartic. Red Hot Chili Peppers was another one that, I mean, I grew up with so much. Fred Again was another one. I mean, that was one that I found within the last 2 years and completely changed my life. And the last one was, I mean, I wouldn't call it a concert, but like the Kanye listening party. Like I ended up actually leaving early because I was like, okay, like this is cool, but not like I'm okay. Like this I got what I needed.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of shows, which I'm grateful for, and like thankfully, I mean, it's like quote season's over, so there's not as much going on. USANA shut up shop, Granary's over, Red Buttes over, so it's nice to have it like
all the outdoor venues are like pretty much it's just Delta Center. You get decent shows at the Depot. Yeah, Commonwealth, Depot, like it, but I mean, a lot of those ones are just like small touring bands and like random alternative rock bands from Provo. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but there's been enough that have made it that it's like, all right, you
might as well see them early, I guess. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. Well, Michael, I want to start from. I mean, obviously. A lot of content that you create both for yourself personally with NHL Utah, with Utah Finds, but then also professionally helping a lot of, I mean, which led to Utah Finds of helping a lot of these restaurants with their marketing and kind of being more of, I mean, the term that people use today is like a lot of fractional CMO work.
Yeah.
But want to start from the beginning of how you got here, because I know that Utah wasn't the original home, but you came down from Alaska. But what was, I mean, growing up in Alaska like?
Yeah. So I'm a military brat. Okay. Technically, I'm an Air Force brat, which when people say Air Force brat, I feel like there's this connotation of like, oh, kind of the wimpier side of the military. It's the stereotypical thing that my dad, I mean, just being around the military all the time, very open, very maybe not so politically correct in their jokes towards each other, which I absolutely loved growing up like that. And growing up with a military dad was fantastic. But I was born in Wyoming. We moved to Italy for a little bit. And then when I was around 1, we moved to Alaska and just kept staying up there. My dad had a run-in with the law while he was in the military, young, but was able to stay in, and it ended up being this like pivotal moment in his life where he had a mentor up in Alaska that just like took him under his wing and kept getting him restationed up there. And I was extremely just blessed in my life to be able to grow up in a place where I feel like a lot of people talk about this, like this not traditional upbringing, but like this upbringing where you're a little bit less watched over and like, just being in the woods all day and going fishing with my friends when I was really young. Like there wasn't as many boundaries set on my life. So I felt like I had the opportunity to grow up faster. And then when I was in middle school, we moved to Illinois for a couple of years, and then we moved to Germany for a couple of years, and then we moved back to Alaska where I graduated high school. And it was fun to be able to graduate like with the kids that I grew up with, but that's not really relevant. I went on a mission for 2 years in Detroit, and then while I was on my mission, one of my really good friends was like, "Hey, my sister's going to the school in Salt Lake." I didn't actually know it existed just because I didn't grow up necessarily in the church. My like in the LDS church, my parents joined when I was younger, but I'm not aware of Utah culture. There's all these stereotypes of Utah culture. And so I was like naturally afraid of it. Didn't want to go, wanted to go back to Alaska, but somebody was like, there's a school that's like really inexpensive. You can basically go for free, and the classes are really easy. And as somebody who's never really good at traditional education, I just I'm really spontaneous, and I just like went online and like registered for school. I hadn't even taken the ACT or the SAT because I'm so like so bad at testing. Not a great, a good student, but not a good traditional student.
Got it.
And ADHD, whatever. I mean, I do have ADHD, but not really whatever you want to call it. But I went to Ensign College downtown, and phenomenal experience there. Was really inexpensive, and the networking side of that was fantastic. So actually drove my 1997 Honda CR-V down the Alcan onto a ferry in Haines, Alaska, got off in Bellingham, Washington. Speaking of childhood bands, that's where Death Cab for Cutie's from, and I'm a big Death Cab fan. But so that side fact, but drove all the way down to Utah and just found myself kind of in love with it here. The plan was to just ski bum and go to school, and maybe more traditional stereotype Utah. I moved down, and my wife is from Los Angeles, and because I know you wanted to talk about what's keeping me here. Mm-hmm. My wife's from LA. She does not like Los Angeles, and we met like a week into being here and just kind of like became really close friends for a while, and then fast forward 7 years down the road, we've been married for 6 and have 2 kids and a house in Rose Park, and just have both kind of fallen in love with Utah. I think Utah provides this really good middle ground where it's an escape from the big city. Mm-hmm. And it's also an escape from the seclusion of like I would love to live far away from people, but there's something about the benefits of living around people, like the community aspects, not that you can't get community when you're living in a town that's 5,000 people in Alaska, but Utah provides this really interesting middle ground for people trying to escape the big city and people trying to find life within a city.
Yeah. It's a nice like Goldilocks effect between the two, where it's like, oh, you want to be in the middle of nowhere? Cool. Drive 15 minutes in any direction.
Absolutely.
You want to be around a bunch of people? Go downtown. It'll scratch that itch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Compared to like, oh, you want to go to LA and be stuck in traffic for 2 hours a day, or pay.
Yeah. Getting out of Los Angeles is really challenging. And honestly, getting out of Chugach, Alaska, we're 40 minutes from Anchorage, and even when you go to Anchorage, it doesn't feel like a city. Right. It's a different type of city, and Anchorage is kind of sketchy anyways for those of you that know Alaska. But so as much as I was like, oh, let's go back to Alaska, we just kind of slowly found ourselves falling in love with Utah. And while I was in college, people knew I was studying entrepreneurship specifically, but with a focus in like digital marketing and sales. Right. I started a brand while I was in college, and then I had some friends who were like, hey, could you just kind of like help me with our social media? Because I was just young and studying marketing. So they were like, I don't know how to do this.
Like this young whippersnapper.
Here you go. Yeah.
Social media.
Yeah. This guy knows what he's doing. I did not, but
fake it till you make it.
But yeah, what I did was essentially just like, I'll just do it for free until I figure it out. And that was very cool with it. One of my longest standing clients, I started right after I graduated from college, and they're now not massive, but way bigger than they were in a digital sense. It was this little jerky company out in Tooele, Erta, if you want to get specific, and Thompson Smokehouse. I met their owners. I looked at their website. I was like, that sucks. I could probably do better. I looked at their social media. I was like, that sucks. I could definitely do better. And so they just kept asking me to do stuff. And every time they asked me, I would just say yes and figure it out.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how my business started. I knew that I had a mind for sales, and I know that I'm a naturally creative person. So always been good at photography, always had kind of an eye for things that not necessarily everyone has. And I have a lot of weaknesses. So I'm not necessarily like tooting my own horn. This is just what I'm good at. And like I said, I'm bad at a lot of things.
Oh,
but
I can throw my hat in the ring for that one too.
Yeah. But I kind of had a knack for marketing and for selling things to people in a way that didn't feel like they were being sold to. And and that's what marketing is nowadays. So, picked up my first, that was kind of the first thing in the food industry that I did. And then I just kind of fell in love with it. This small, like I fell in love with the family owned restaurant, and, through a couple connections, started doing marketing for Moochie's, and, then kind of just started focusing on local multi-location restaurants. And yeah, this is kind of the brief synopsis of it, but I just got really good at helping these restaurants go viral. I was working with influencers all the time, like the foodie pages. Probably the ones that people know the most here are like Utah Grubs, SLC Foodie, Leah, SLC, Queen of SLC, Utah Grubs, that kind of stuff. And I was like, I could do this. Like and not in a cocky way, but like
especially spending that much time where you're creating, like, oh, cool, I just made Moochies have this, real TikTok go viral, and now they just gained 5,000 followers, and like seeing so many times, you're like, wait a minute, I think there's something here that I could do as well.
And I think there's something here that I could do differently, because what I didn't want to do,
which is important.
Yeah. What I didn't want to do was come in and just like do like, here's where you should eat, and that's it. Like, is my palate that advanced that people give a crap where I eat? No, not really. But I just started doing, and what people probably know me for, if they've seen Utah Food Finds, they've seen like the map and it like zooms in on the location. Mm-hmm. And when people notice me, like I have people notice me at restaurants sometimes, which is really funny. I always just think it's kind of hilarious. I'm like, ow. Like, I think it's funny, but I do love it. People are like, oh yeah, I really love the map. I'm like, okay, so once again, confirmed, people don't actually really like me. They actually like Google Maps. And that's fine. But yeah, I was able to kind of frame the food, and it's less of a foodie page, it's more focusing on the restaurant. I like focusing on the actual people in the restaurant, and it's a lot of food. So probably saying it isn't a foodie page isn't super honest, but I was at one of my other clients, and the owner was there, and then one of the other owners was there, and I was like, will you just hold this camera and like record me interviewing him for a second? Yeah. Because I've thought about doing that. Like, I want to put them on camera. I love telling the stories of these local restaurant owners, and I know from experience that their audience wants to hear from them. Yes. Like, the food is important, but if you can personify the food,
make an emotional connection to it.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, and that's what people want. So we did that, and that first like interview kind of went viral. And
who's the first one with?
Mr. Charlie's Chicken. Okay. Another transplant. So sorry about the housing prices from me and Bartley from Mr. Charlie's Chicken, but he's from Auburn, Alabama. Started doing just wanted to bring because the chicken finger craze that has been kind of pushed by Raising Cane's did not start with Raising Cane's. People think like Raising Cane's is the best. First of all, not to hate on Raising Cane's. No, it's not. But it started in Auburn, Alabama, where Bartley's from. And he worked for the like the first chicken tender, like that classic plate that you always see that's like fries, chicken tenders, Texas toast, slaw, whatever. And he just wanted that in Utah. And so I was like, let's just tell that story really briefly in like a 1 minute and 30-second interview. Be fast about it. And people really love it. Like I said, I keep saying this, like, people don't want to hear from me. It's because I don't want them to hear from me. I want them to hear from them. Yeah. Because they're so much more interesting and so much more important to the community. And so if I can in any way be a part of sharing their story, and this is the thing, making them more money and getting people in the door, and like, I don't know, helping the economy move in the way that it needs to. It's an honor to associate myself with these people. I mean,
especially in very recent times, like the amount of like restaurant or some sort of food and bev entrepreneurs it's the episode that releases this week, but with, Crystal and Cliff, who are, the manager and creative director for Bar Gnome, when I just recorded last week with Brent from Old Cuss. And it's like, there's this voice of like, hey, listen, we are all struggling. Like if there's restaurants you like, go support them. Cause and I'll always be a believer, if like a restaurant goes out of business, like, capitalism spoke,
It did. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then people will be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this place went out of business. I was like, well, when's the last time you went? And they're like, 4 years ago. Why? Yeah. I'm like, well, then I wonder why. And but it makes way for new restaurants. But at the same time, there's been some that have gone out where you're like, oh, that actually was like a really good restaurant that left. And I know purse strings are tight for everybody, but the more that you can go support these people who have these visions, who like you said, I mean, it is a grind to run a restaurant. You are there from open till close. You have to manage all of this inventory. Margin is super low.
Yeah.
Everybody's dollar's tight and they don't want to pay more than they feel like they have to.
Yeah.
They have these like I was talking to a friend and we were talking about another friend who owns a restaurant, and that friend's like, it's just so hard to get people to come in and help. And like, it was very condescending from the other people. Cause they're like, well, why don't you just pay them more? Why don't you just incentivize? Like, brother, like,
yeah,
like, thank you so much for the advice, but like, that's not how this works.
That was really helpful, but it wasn't at all. So like,
exactly.
Yeah, it's especially in the recent past, the restaurant industry has struggled significantly. So exposure for these restaurants, especially free or extremely cheap exposure, is important. So like, I feel like when people ask me like, oh, how can I help a restaurant? Like, first of all, example we were just talking about, stop going to Raising Cane's and go to Mr. Charlie's Chicken. Yep. Raising Cane's is not struggling. Like,
they're doing great.
They're doing fantastic. Post Malone is making lots of money. I love Post Malone. I don't actually love his music, but as a person, like, it's hard not to be like, yeah he's kind of sick. So like, no hate there, really no hate towards Raising Cane's, but like, there's a local place that in my opinion does it better, but like, stop spending your money at giant chains and write reviews. Like, write reviews on traditional platforms like Google and Yelp and whatever, and post them on your story. And like, just easy things that people can do to support local businesses. And then, like you said, people will be like, why did that place go out of business? It's like, because you didn't go there. Like, it's not all on an individual, but it's on a community to like spend their money in places where it's going to go the furthest within the community. And when I don't really eat, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'll eat a Taco Bell every once in a while because Taco Bell's fantastic. I will indulge in a McChicken and a spicy McChicken every once in a while because I like to live. But the vast majority of what I eat now, which is fantastic. You were talking about like your platform being able to help you go to concerts. My platform helps me eat all the time for free out, which like I realize is such a blessing because I rarely have to cook. And like, my in-laws, they just left town yesterday. They're just like, what do we do with all of this food? And I'm like, eat it. I don't know. Yeah. And if I get too much food, sometimes I just like text my friends and I'm like, come over. I have too much food, or I'll drop it off at their doorstep. So I realize how fortunate I am to be able to have at least a little bit of a platform and also be able to make a difference with it. It's so fun. Like, it's not for everybody because it actually is a ton of work. I feel like people maybe misinterpret the amount of work that actually goes into being creative. I feel like most people think, especially like our generation, younger generations, are like, I grew up with social media. I know how to do this. You and me remember Facebook starting and Instagram starting. And when TikTok came along, we were probably like, the freak are these young people doing? Like, I felt like an old man at that point. And it's on TikTok, I on there a lot for business, but I'm not a consumer of TikTok because I just like, it's not my vibe. Like, I'm faithful to Instagram, and I wish I could still be faithful to like Vine, honestly.
RIP.
I know. It makes me wish that X would restart Vine. Yeah. Or Twitter would restart Vine.
Elon,
get on it, buddy. We know you have money.
Yeah, you got spare time now the election's over.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank goodness the election's over. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really fortunate to be able to spend this much time with restaurant owners, and then being able to see like the needle move for them when I post is so fun. Yeah. Like, when they text me and they're like, hey, like, could I like send you a tip or something? Cause this video just went crazy and kind of made us really busy for a couple days or whatever. But I always say, like, if my video like pushes one person to go in and try a new place, it's well worth the time that it took to post it.
Totally. So. I mean, especially when you produce content, and this is one lesson like I've learned a lot is, I mean, you record, you create, you do whatever, you push it out, and it goes into this ether. I mean, you see the numbers, you see whatever, but you don't hear like someone be like, oh, hey, listen, I just went to Charlie's like chicken and that was now my favorite place and I go all the time. Yeah. Or they
specifically with Charlie's that happened because I was just low hanging fruit. At first I was like, I need to prove the concept. I'm already in where my clients are. Yeah. So I'm just going to go to my clients, review them and see what happens. Like, I already get the food. So it's easy for them. It's free for them. and then I'm just gonna see what happens. And yeah,
Totally.
it happened with Charlie's. There's like crazy busy. I think that one of my first Charlie videos got like 300,000 views.
Wow.
And it was like sick. I know this moves the needle because they told me that it did.
Yeah.
And so it just motivated me more to like find the little guys. Like Charlie's is still very little, but 2 locations, local. And they're busy a lot because they have good food, but like it motivated me to be like, how can I find the people that nobody know about and go in and try and at least change their lives a little bit for the better.
Because there's like, I mean, I spend enough time in Lehigh for work, but and I get there, I'm like, cool, there is no culture, there's no soul here. All I see is a bunch
soulless
of
chains,
just soulless chains.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, again, to your point, like, will I go to Taco Bell? Yes. Will I go to McDonald's? Yes. Will I go to a chain here there? Like, yeah, like, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, like, the best food and usually the best for you are the things that are going to be the most local. It's going to be the people that actually care about that dollar coming in and like give a heart and soul to Salt Lake. And so the last thing I would want to see is, I mean, even when I was traveling in the van, I mean, I remember driving through Nebraska and being like, oh, like Omaha is literally just like chains. Like there is nothing else. And I know there's probably something else or someone in Nebraska is like, oh, you don't know Nebraska. I'm like, listen.
For all the listeners of the Small Lake City podcast in Nebraska, you are heard.
Yes, we hear you. We validate you. But at the same time, like we do want those souls. And like the best way to do that is to create an emotional connection, hear the story. And people do want to hear the story.
They do.
Because then that makes people do want to go. Because if all of a sudden someone's like, oh, here's another fried chicken place. Oh, everybody wants Cane's or knows it. Let's just go do that.
Yeah.
Compared to, oh, this guy's from where like hot chicken tenders are from and like where it all started. And this is what he did to help all of us.
And
like,
he wanted to come here.
Right.
And bring
places.
Like their tagline is like Southern food at elevation or I've been there for long enough that I should probably know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
At altitude. That's what it is.
There we go. Altitude.
Yeah.
Altitude, elevation.
If you don't know about Alabama, you could stand on a shoebox and see the entire state. So, yeah, it's really like some people are just doing such cool things.
Yeah.
That it's so fun going in, being able to go into the kitchen, meet with the owners. We were just at Maria's Mexican Grill yesterday. Met Sergio, who named the place after his wife, and he's just this like didn't speak great English, so I did my first interview in Spanish.
Nice.
My Spanish isn't great. My wife speaks fluent Spanish, and I was able to kind of like power through a first Spanish interview. I was like, maybe I should start a comida page for Spanish, like in Spanish for Utah. Like that sounds fun. Like, but I don't know. I have ADHD, so lots of ideas and not enough time to execute them.
Oh, don't get me started. The amount of, the ideation phase is huge. The execution phase, not as huge.
Yeah, the execution phase. And that's what I've made friends with the other foodies, and they're like, the most important thing is just like stay so consistent.
Consistent.
Posting every single day. If you miss a day here and there, it's okay. But like it's a lot of people, and this is normal. This isn't just a social media conversation. Like so many people will start an idea and don't want to wait until it works. Like they expect it to work now.
Yeah.
Even if it's a good idea,
I don't want to do this.
It takes time. So like that, I don't know. That's probably like one of the bigger lessons I've learned from Utah Food Finds, because I was really fortunate the first video I did that went super viral was Pyrodos. I don't know if you've ever been into Pyrodos. Pyrodos is one of the coolest freaking places in our entire community.
I've heard of it, but I haven't been there now.
So it's in Draper, and it has basically they just import products from all over the world.
Yes. It's like the Stuart Melling, who's the writer for Gastronomic SLC.
Yeah.
He brought me candy from England from there. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm back.
It's crazy. If you've never been in the store, first of all,
because I did see that you did the post on that.
Yeah, they have like really cool food items and really cool drink items. And not only that, but it's just an entire store, this really old store that their owner's story is fascinating. You can go on my page if you want to hear it. I probably need to start a podcast to tell their stories a little in like longer form, because I'm always like having to cut out important things because I'm trying to hit that like minute and a half. It's the
90 seconds.
It's the downfall, I think, of our generation a little bit, and of short form content. You're not able to tell the story in depth.
Yeah.
You really have to like fire off questions, because everyone has some sort of attention deficit problem. So you're trying to make it fast. You're trying to make it consumable. You're trying to keep it from scrolling. So you're trying to be quick about it. But their owner's just fantastic. And yeah, Pyrodos, you should go there. But that was the first video that I did that it got like a couple million views, and they were really happy with it. And now I know the owners really well. And it was cool because they were like, yeah, our normal high season is Christmas. Like they have really busy holidays and they have a really cool holiday offering, but and they're not paying me to plug this, by the way. I'm just talking about Pyrodos because they're fantastic. But they were like, seriously, the fact that you posted that in July, you gave us like a little Christmas in July because we were slammed for weeks.
You are Santa Claus.
Yeah, like I was like, sick. I am Santa Claus. Yeah, it was fun. It's seeing that difference is really important. And I feel like it's like where I chose my career path. It's fun to be able to like see an impact immediately.
I mean, especially with like the ADHD side of things, to be like, okay, like you could have easily been like, all right, I'm going to be digital marketing, consulting, agency. That is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And like put your blinders up and just go execute, which is fine. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
But then to be like, oh wait, I have these other ideas. Here's how I can improve. Here's how I can be a little more creative and lean into that creative side.
Yeah.
And then you find something special that not only you enjoy and you get free food, but all of a sudden people are like, oh my gosh, like thank you so much. Like you changed like, I wouldn't say like life, but at the same time, like you changed the course of the business for July. I get to have a second Christmas.
At least for a month. Like if we just like, if there's something that we can do to help push traffic anywhere, it's so fun. And the Utah Food Finds thing kind of piggybacked on, like we got a couple months ago, it's about 6 months ago at this point, the NHL, the National Hockey League for the Utahns that are not educated on the greatest sport on the planet, announced that it was sending the Arizona Coyotes to Utah permanently. And it was kind of a really random move. And I was like, I got to be involved with this somehow.
Yeah.
Like I'm from Alaska. I love hockey. I grew up a big like Detroit Red Wings fan, and started just posting, and the hype kind of grew, and that page grew really fast. And it's on the same idea of like, I have an idea, I'm just going to do it. Yeah. And my goal at the beginning of this year was just to like, if you have an idea, just execute or forget about it. Like if you have an idea, vet it a little bit, and then if you still feel like going forward, just like go. Yeah. And I know you don't have the time for all the ideas that you have, but like just go and do it. And so the NHL thing came kind of soon, and I got a good handle. And I know we're talking about social media a lot, and I hate talking about like followers and stuff because I think it's obnoxious, and it doesn't actually mean that you have value if you have followers, which is important to know. But like it grew really fast, and I was able to I'm able to be involved with like the team, and as a media personality, and like having the Utah Hockey podcast, and like it's the hype of that kind of died down, and I was like, all right, that was really fun to like kind of explosive growth, getting to be creative in something that I love, and that kind of like motivated me to just be like, what's the next idea I have? I don't know. Like I once again, not sure if I have time for this, but let's just go. And I'm in restaurants all the time, so it's kind of convenient, but.
And it's like, this is actually something I've thought about a lot recently, is there's been no time in history where it's easier to get to competent at anything.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, between YouTube and ChatGPT and all of the different information we have access to, like if you want to, start an NHL podcast, like then go do it. No one's just going to come and find you, be like, listen, Michael, I see you grew up in Alaska and have been a Red Wings fan, and we would like you to come and do, like, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And so many people get caught up in like the ideation phase of like, well, is this a good idea? Isn't it? And like, cause I'm the kind of person I can talk myself out of anything. I can also talk myself into anything.
Yeah.
But usually if it's like an idea like that's going to take effort, I'll talk myself out of.
Sure.
But what people don't understand is like, just do it. Like there's always like these external weird judgments that you feel like, well, if people are going to judge me if I post, like, who cares? Someone's going to hate whatever you do, whatever you do.
It's weird until it's not.
Yeah.
Is what one of my really good buddies said. Cause he kind of did something similar where he lives in a van and like started making content and then kind of blew up. And it is weird. Like the month and a half before I posted that Pyrodos video was weird. People, and I know I'm a dude, so I take things personally and kind of unreasonably out of context sometimes, but like people would mention it and I always felt like I was being mocked.
I was the same.
Oh, I hate that. Yeah. Like I can't stand it, and then it wasn't weird because it worked. Like that's everything in business, it's everything in life. It's I feel like putting yourself out there and just being uncomfortable for a little bit it makes just good people better at what they do.
Yeah.
Like if you're good at it, making yourself uncomfortable will make you great at it. So, yeah, maybe it's not that deep because of social media, but
it's like, but here's the thing is like those things, they aren't that deep, I mean, especially when it's just like at a saying level. But then when you find out the meaning of it in your own personal experience and like how much it can change your life, the people you're interviewing, like people want to listen to the podcast, keep in
my wife's life, because she doesn't have to spend money on food anymore.
Exactly.
It's great.
So everybody benefits, especially your wife.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to be like, oh, cool. Like, oh, consistency matters. Like, yeah, I know consistency matters. Like, but you don't like know.
Yeah. It matters so much. And I feel like and this isn't knocking anybody in a very traditional, like most people take a traditional route and have a fantastic career and love the company they're at. And or maybe not most people love the company they're at, but most people take a traditional career path. And I feel like a lot of people in our generation just don't want to do that.
There's an awakening happening. Like the amount of times I've had like this conversation in the past year is staggering. Yeah. Because people are like, oh, listen, I did what everybody told me to do. I went into college. I got a job. I did what everybody said. Yeah. And then now I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't like this. Yeah. And so again, like it takes a step to be like, okay, I can't quit my job as like, let's use an accountant as an example, but I can use my other time to do other things, or there's this creative thing, or this is a side hobby or hustle or whatever. And it doesn't have to even be anything like revenue generating or like secondary income, but it's something that you can find yourself. Yeah. And like, even with you, you're like, oh, I'm just going to go start consulting on this beef jerky company for free because I want to learn how to do it and they're asking me to. And then all of a sudden it turns into a thing. Because people, again, to your point you alluded to earlier, is people want to start something and they just want to see this instant hockey stick. But that's not how it works. No. Like no one's ever posted one. I mean, I'm sure there's an example or 10, but whatever, of they'll post something like, oh my God, I'm famous. Like now I'm blowing up. I'm the new Hawk Tua girl. Yeah. But like that's not how it works for the other 99.999% of people. It takes effort. It takes consistency. It takes thought. It takes execution. And then once those things come together, you're like, oh, this like actually can be. Because like to your point, I feel the same way whenever I used to talk to people about the podcast at the beginning. They'll be like, oh, like, what are you up to? I'm like, working, started a podcast. Like, oh,
great. Another white guy started a podcast? No,
I was literally about to say that. And so, but then after a while, like, I'm not going to say that the podcast is like this huge thing that people know about, but it's like this kind of no man's land between it's not nothing, but it's not something.
I have heard about it outside of, because I've followed it for a while, but I've heard about it organically from other people.
And that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Because and that starts to happen now.
And I know that makes people feel good because they're like sick. In the wild, it's being talked about sometimes. That's great.
Well, even actually it was yesterday, I was working here at Edison House. One of my friends who actually, she's the one who got me to start the podcast, Maddie Bullock. She came to work. She used to be a member here. Now she's not. And she just needed to get away from the house. And we're sitting here working. She looks down the table. She's like, oh, do you know this guy? And I was like, oh, I've seen him in the gym every morning. But it's like, I will not talk to you at the gym. I will not acknowledge you at the gym. That is me time. Come talk to me after. I would love to get to know you, but that's not the place. And so I'd see him almost every morning. And she's like, Eric, this is so-and-so, this is Eric hosts a podcast. And he's like, oh, like what podcast? I'm like, oh, it's Small Lake City, blah, blah. He's like, no way. He's like, I joined Edison House because I heard your episode with George and Charlie and I needed some community. So I joined it and I've been listening ever since. He's like, thank you so much. Like, and I'm probably just going to cut this all out because I don't like talk to like, no, guess how someone praised me. Yeah. But it was just
don't
so
cut
nice.
It out. It's important.
Okay, but it was nice to be like, and honestly, like I almost like started crying because it was so heartfelt. It was so honest. And because again, like to your point of when you have this strategy of what you want to execute on, he was essentially like, yeah, like you are highlighting these people doing great things. You're becoming this voice of Salt Lake and you're great content, great production value. I was like, that is the nicest 4 things ever anyone's ever said in a row consecutive to me. And like to your point, like when you go to restaurants, people are like, oh, hey, you're the Utah Finds guy. Like I found this restaurant because of you. I did this.
I always just kind of laugh at people, and I don't laugh at them, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened again. Just because it's just hilarious to me that people see any value in what I do. Because not that I don't know, like I know I'm providing value, but it's always just like. It's just funny to me, but it's an honor meeting people that see my videos. I love it.
Yeah.
But it is always initially really awkward because I'm like, oh gosh, they saw the video that I made. And I think my voice is weird. And I think like, maybe I didn't edit that video perfectly, but.
Oh, I'm the same way. I always get a little uncomfy when people say I saw that.
But it is like our generation feels less and less like they want to be managed a lot. Like, I don't know if you watch The Office, but like Ryan, like don't manage me when I'm in the mood to be managed.
Yes.
That's honestly kind of how I feel. Like look, I could get into a job and I could follow the rules as long as it was fun and I enjoyed myself. So I would be a terrible employee. I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't hire me.
Don't hire my client.
Don't hire, be my, like,
be his
definitely
client,
hire me as a
hire
client,
him.
but like, do not hire me to be like a full-time, expect me in the office every day kind of guy. Cause I won't do it. And right after college, I got a job with, while I was kind of doing my freelance stuff, I was like, I need a real job. I got a job with Rockstar Energy, the energy drink company. And I was their like marketing coordinator for the state of Utah. And so it was some traditional marketing, but it was mostly just like I had a truck and thousands of energy drinks every week. And I would just like go hand them out to people and do events. And it was like, for me, that sounded like the perfect job. Like I didn't have a direct supervisor even close to me. We had like a call every week. And it seemed like it was going to be awesome, but it very quickly, the like micromanaging of initially it was like kind of free flowing. And then after a couple weeks, they were like, okay, now that you're like comfortable, let's make you extraordinarily miserable with how far up your butt we're going to be at all times. And I lasted 2 months. I quit pretty quickly. The marketing thing kind of started working itself out. And I was like, okay, well, screw these guys. I'm depressed. I can't do this. This company makes me extremely unhappy. Their owner's kind of I probably shouldn't say really bad things about people on this podcast, but let's just say that like culture is top down and the culture at the bottom was really negative. Like micromanaging, not open to ideas, not open to like suggestions or like, and so my creative mind kind of felt like I was being really compressed and I would literally like cry myself to sleep in that job after about 3 weeks in it. And so I quit and just started doing my own thing. And I would never, ever be able to be employed by somebody else. Yeah. Like I have clients that are a little bit more demanding and that's okay. I like it when clients want me to do more. Cause that means whatever I'm doing is working. But, I definitely understand people who are like, I can't freaking stand working for other people.
And I am slowly realizing that there's a better way than I've done everything up until this point in my life.
Yeah. That's okay. How old are you?
34.
Yeah. Young.
Oh,
so much time.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. What is it? The Talladega Nights quote, especially with modern medicine, I could probably live till like, I don't know what number it is. It's maybe like 170 or something like that. Yeah.
Same energy.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm just kidding. But I feel like people continually feel like the attitude of like, I guess the Gary V's of like, you're in your 40s, you're so young, you have so much time.
You could go to college and start an entire new career and have like a 20-year career.
Exactly. Especially with like retirement ages, people are always like, I'm going to be retired by I'm 30. By the time I'm 30, 40, 50. First of all, no, you're not. Second of all, you want to really like you want to stop doing things that are impactful. Like by then I get that like the idea of financial comfort and being able to do what you want sounds awesome. But first of all, really hard to do. Second of all, I don't think I'll ever retire. I think that to some extent I'll work till I die. And that sounds awesome too. Like, even if it's just something that I love doing, even if I'm like, for the people that are going to stick with me for that long, 75-year-old Mike doing food reviews. First of all, it sounds hilarious. Second of all, probably be doing something to that extent when I'm that old. Like my mind can't turn off. Like I keep working. In my sleep I work. My mind doesn't turn off.
And I think there's like an interesting nuance behind it. Because when I hear someone say, I want to retire early, what I hear is, I don't want to have someone to tell me what to do until the age I am 65. Or
I feel that is. Yeah.
Because even if you do retire at 35 and you're financially set, you have your yacht, you have your private jet, whatever, You're probably going to start a business. You're probably going to do something else. There's going to be some sort of pursuit, but it's your pursuit.
Yeah.
And so
even if it's philanthropic or
exactly
like giving your time to a cause that you care about, I think that's important.
And so there's a lot of people that conflate the two, because I hear a lot of people being like, well, I don't want to work. Like, I work too much. I want like, which again, like, don't give your best self to your employer.
Yeah.
Like number one, like
Absolutely.
you have so many other better things to do. And like your energy is your energy, and give it to the ones you care about and love. Don't give it to your boss.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like I hear people like, oh, I don't want to work for like 50, 60 hours a week. I'm like, I don't, neither do I. But unless it's something that I can see the benefit from, it's something that gives me energy, something that other people find value in.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's the ultimate, the Japanese term of like ikigai.
Yeah.
Ikigai? I think it is. I'll check. Anyway, it's like where economic value, your own personal values, giving value to others, the intersectionality of them all. And I promise people, it's not being a marketing specialist at whatever company you're at. Like that, like we did not evolve to stare at a black screen all day and be like, I'm fulfilled. Yeah. And I know there's someone out there who's like, I love my job. I'm the VP of something.
Yeah.
Like,
and if you
cool.
do, so freaking cool.
Yeah,
like if you love your job and you have a good team and you enjoy what you do and you see your impact, that's phenomenal. I have absolutely nothing about that. I guess my
and we're all different.
Exactly. Like my experience is my experience, and I speak in a lot of generalities because I'm dramatic sometimes, but like, yeah, I'm so grateful that I found the path that I did, because working for people made me miserable.
Yeah. So I kind of want to pivot for a sec, but
sure.
So I don't know, how many, do you know off the cuff how many interviews you've done so far on Utah Finds? Or even ballpark?
Yeah, no, I probably 40 or 50. I've recorded a lot more than that.
Yeah, in the backlog.
But yeah, like I've probably posted 40 different interviews in the last, I started about 3 months ago.
Got it. And so I guess my question is, so now that you have enough of these data points to go from anecdotes to like seeing trends, I mean, what are some of the learnings that you've had in recording with so many people or getting to know so many of these restaurant entrepreneurs? Yeah,
I guess, what do you mean by like, could you clarify your question?
Yeah. Like, is there any sort of themes of like people wanting to, I mean,
could you use it in a sentence? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm trying to think of like the answer I want. And I don't know if there is an answer I want.
Sure.
I mean, something along the lines of, like, for example, with the podcast, like whenever I hear people talk about a lot of the value of Utah, it comes down to like almost like 5 things. They see the community that people have. People belong to things and love that. Yeah. They love the outdoors. They love how clean of a city it is. It's close to an airport. It's kind of this, like we talked about, this intersectionality of like being in the middle of nowhere and being in the middle of a big city.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm curious if there's anything that a lot of these people have said of like why they wanted to start a restaurant, what they're hoping to add.
Yeah, definitely. Being around these restaurateurs, because people see, if you go look at Utah Food Finds, you'll see like 40-second to a minute and a half clips of me interviewing restaurant owners, mixed with just like more traditional restaurant suggestions and different things that you should try at specific places. I talk to the business owners for probably, I'm with them for maybe 20 minutes to half an hour every time I go. And it's not because I have the time to do that. I definitely don't, but I just find them so fascinating and cool and I feel like I'm able to relate with them in a lot of different ways. So we just kind of rattle on about whatever and talking about their business and how it's going and like talking about their family and their kids. And mostly from what I hear, because we do have an insane amount of restaurant concepts that happen here in Utah. Even to the point where we have multiple like major funds, angel funds that go in, and specifically like Savory Fund.
Yeah, Mercado crushes it.
Yeah, exactly. There's probably 4 or 5 major restaurant funds that are funding concepts of people that have, and it's always they started it and then they get funded by a bigger place that wants to kind of help them grow and expand. And I say that just to kind of point out that Utah is a really business friendly state.
Yes.
I think it has a little bit to do with the fact that some of the cities feel a little bit like a rat race. Like people are kind of keeping up with the Joneses a lot.
Oh, yeah, a lot of that.
People like to eat out here. There's a lot of tech, so that people have money to eat out often. But it comes down to the kind of like the state is just business friendly. And people like spending money here, and people enjoy living here because it's safe and it's beautiful, and maybe not safe for your lungs. I have asthma, and I didn't know that until I got here. Yeah. So I'm always I'm always out of breath. Like it used to, when I first moved here, I would like ski tour. Can't do that so much because I run out of breath after about,
I will die.
After about 15 steps, I'm like, we were walking up the stairs earlier when we were showing around Edison House, and I was like, dang, bro, I should not be struggling.
Can I Eric pause for a second?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's take a nap at the top of Edison House before we come back down. But, yeah, it's a combination of like why these restaurant owners love Utah. It's because people genuinely just like living here. Yeah. It's because most of them have families and it's relatively safe. It's gorgeous. The laws are pretty business friendly. There's a lot of actually like government owned, I guess government subsidized organizations that are geared towards helping local businesses succeed. Yep. Now, that's not just in the restaurant space. If you take World Trade Center Utah, for example, I don't know if you're familiar with them. That's somebody you should interview. You should interview Julia from the World Trade Center of Utah. Phenomenal person, but they like help, specifically a part of their business is like helping outdoor brands thrive and giving them, getting them government grants and all this cool stuff. So there's just so many assets here in Utah for people to succeed. And there's a lot of people that want to see you succeed. And I feel like from my point of view, I feel like there's so many like food review pages here.
True.
And I think it does like you might find some of them annoying. I do. Sometimes I find my own content annoying, but like that does show that like a lot of people love eating out here in Utah. Yeah. A lot of people and the fact that a lot of them have so much bigger following than I do, like there's a lot of opportunity to succeed. And I feel like when you talk about like the American dream, these small restaurants that come in here and start and grow and like just want to share their culture with people. Cause I would say like half the restaurants that I've been to are owned by immigrants to Utah. And they just want to come and share this amazing cuisine with people. It's their American dream. And they've been told about the American dream their whole life. They just want to come here and live it. And they chose Utah to do that because they have cousins that moved to San Francisco and they're like, not a freaking chance I'm moving there. Yeah, don't go. They have cousins that moved to Texas and they're like, that's a little too hot, which is funny coming from like yesterday, Sergio at Maria's Mexican Grill, he's from Mexico. And he was like, it's a little too hot in Texas. And I was like, pause. You're from the equator. No, I'm just kidding. like, it's probably a little hotter, but like there's so much opportunity here and there's so many great people here that want to see you succeed. So totally. And I feel like, and maybe this is just a disease of youth, but like jealousy. I would move here and hear about people succeeding in tech and hear about people succeeding in marketing. And I think initially I was like, I would get kind of like envious of them. Yeah. And something in my mind just told me to be like, turn that off and just be happy for people. Oh yeah. And my goodness, like removing it's good to have people that are doing so much better than you for you to have something to aspire to. And like I've just kind of changed my mindset on that. I definitely fell short a lot, just being like envious and maybe a little jealous and maybe even like not wanting them to succeed.
Yeah, comparison's the thief of joy.
Yeah. And I removed comparison from my life and was just like, I can just be happy for everybody. And I think it lends well for a lot of these restaurant owners actually are that same way with their competitors. Yeah. Like they want to see them succeed. They want to see them happy. They want to see their family happy.
And that's unique to Salt Lake in Utah, I've found.
It is. It's not as cutthroat as a lot of places.
Totally.
And like I have my theories about why that is, but it's just a net positive for everyone.
What's the summary of your theories?
I think some of it, I know that people have issues attributing religion to it, mm-hmm. but there's something about a relationship with God and knowing that you're not all that and that there's somebody
like that level of humility
that you have a relationship with. There's something about that. I know that's not consistent. And I know that there's issues with the culture of a highly religious population being so packed together. And that'll be weird anywhere. If you went to Dearborn, Michigan, you'd be like, I feel a little out of place here. Highly, for those of you that don't know, Dearborn, Michigan is highest population of Arabic people or of Muslims outside of the Middle East. If you went to even like we were in New York a couple weeks ago, if you went to the Upper East Side of New York, you'd be like, ooh, I feel weird here. Only because it's so like highly Jewish population and you just don't feel like you feel like you're
which you could be
outside of your culture, which is fine.
Right. Like I mean, religion is one attribute of many. Like, I mean, if I walked into a place and it was, trying to think of another sort of attribute. I mean, any sort of like, it doesn't have necessarily to be attribute, but if you're the one standing out of anything else, whether it be color, race, sexual orientation, whatever, like you're still going to feel a little bit out of there. And
that's okay. That's actually a good thing.
Exactly.
For you to feel
be uncomfortable.
Being uncomfortable is good. So I do think that the religious part of Utah, while there are things that people don't like about it, I think it's actually really important. And it's, a lot of people don't want to admit it, but it's the reason why a lot of people like living here. Generally people are pretty kind and giving, and they do give a lot of their time to their faith. And I think that's beautiful. But in terms of like other things that are affecting why there's not like this cutthroat want to burn your restaurant, your competing restaurant down. I don't know. I don't know if you have any theories on why that is, but because my mind always goes back to like, what is Utah? Utah is Mormon. So like I think
it all stems from that, right? And like in my opinion, so I mean the LDS faith is one that champions community. I mean, it's one of the few religious organizations that's based geographically. I mean, you look at like non-secular, I mean, Christianity or like non-denominational Christianity, and you can go to whatever church you want to.
Sure.
And then with I mean, Mormonism, the LDS faith, it's all based on your neighborhood. And so that's always been very communal. It's been very, I mean, knowing your neighbors, which without that, it wouldn't happen nearly as much.
Yeah. And that's important. It's not the 80s anymore.
No.
People aren't outside all the time. People aren't sitting on their front porch getting to know their neighbors all the time, and they don't know the name of everyone on their street, and they don't know their birthdays of their kids.
It's a beauty that's since passed.
It has.
And so like even when Utah was first settled, I mean by Brigham Young and the pioneers, I mean they called the state Deseret. I mean Deseret is literally a beehive of people working together towards a common goal. And so
which is sick. That's such a good thing. Like and I understand that there are things about the religion that a lot of people don't like. Totally. And that's okay. It's totally okay to be critical, especially of a leading group, but like that's actually important. But
and so that's always been part of the culture. And even as, I mean, we see trends now, people leaving religion, especially leaving the Mormon church, community is something they still take with them. And that's why you see in Salt Lake, there's so like, if you have a niche, if you have a culture like, or like activity or hobby, whatever that might be, there's usually some sort of like subculture here that will follow it. And as long as you're doing willing to do a little bit of effort to do it, you will find that community in a different place.
Absolutely. There's so many community groups. There's so many like movements in Salt Lake that breed community. And I think that's a good point. I think it is like, once you taste of community, it's really hard to remove that from your life. Even if you remove a big part of your life, such as religion or like political affiliation or whatever it is, like if you kind of move on and change and that's not part of your life anymore, you still crave connection and community and having people that care about you and having people who are checking up on you. Like that's vital.
And communities tend to die when there's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
And so one thing, going back to the concerts I was talking about, is one thing I realized at a show, I don't think I ever got to it. So full ADHD circle back to it.
There we go.
Is music and shows are one of the few experiences where it's all of us together. There is no us versus them. There is no comparison competition. I mean, even in sports, it's there, which is something that brings people together.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that bleeds through into why people aren't, I mean, so cutthroat is like, oh, we're all going to survive and thrive together. There's room for all of it. Like there's a Kendrick Lamar quote I love where he's like, I want all the homies to make it, even if I'm the last one.
Yeah.
And like, we can all win, we can all survive. I mean, there's abundance everywhere. And as long as we can keep, I mean, again, being consistent, being uncomfortable, trying new things, growing, surrounding ourselves by people that do want us to succeed, like we will.
Yeah.
It's just up to you.
Yeah. A lot of it is kind of talking about the restaurant thing again. A lot of my new clients find me through my page. They're like, oh, I went and tried out another restaurant. And I was like, I didn't think that restaurant owners ate at other restaurants. I know that's not true now, but mostly because all their time is consumed in their restaurant. Yeah. But it is cool to just hear that like these restaurant owners support each other and want to see each other succeed, and they want to collaborate, and they want to, even if you're sharing the same block with them, like they understand that competition is actually healthy and good, and you can do it in a friendly manner without being so mean. Even in my own occupation, obviously, if you're listening to this, you probably know somebody who does freelance marketing for businesses.
I can think of 5 off the top
Yeah,
of
it
my
feels like a very common thing. And like I know a couple others that do it for restaurants, and I don't feel any sort of like ill will towards them. I don't feel any, but like competition is good. Competition brings growth, and it helps change people, and it's fantastic. So I think that's what a lot of these local restaurants notice, is that competition is actually good for them.
Yeah.
And when a restaurant comes in that's doing things better than they are, it actually forces them to elevate. So that's why there's such a tight-knit community of restaurant owners, foodies, like newspaper, I guess like news outlets that are heavily tied in with food restaurants, even the customers here. And I feel like this isn't the case in a lot of places, but the customers in Utah feel like, I feel like the customers in Utah are part of the restaurant community more so than in other places, because they have places that they're extremely loyal to, and there's a lot of historical places, and there's new places that come in that people become obsessed with, and it's tied in with their personality of like, this is my place, this is my pizza place, and side note, what's your favorite pizza spot in Utah?
Ooh, it depends. But I would say either if I want like a Neapolitan pizza, either Pizza No-No, or...
It does depend on what type of pizza.
Yes. Yeah. So either Pizza No-No or Nomad East if I want like a traditional pizza. Yeah. If I want a slice, I mean, it's hard to not love Pie Hole. And that's usually like on my kind of like Saturday, Friday night out if I'm out to go do that.
Sure.
But outside of that, I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing. I mean, those are usually my go-tos.
Yeah. I feel like those are popular ones that are good.
Yeah.
I feel like Pie Hole's kind of weird.
Yes.
Only because it definitely is drunk pizza.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like that's not a hate. I actually love that. I love the vibe in there. It's really cool. Their pizza is actually not bad. My personal favorites, I feel like I should give some sort of pizza suggestion.
Naturally.
I'd like, because I am a pizza snob. We went to New York a couple weeks ago. We were there for 2.5 days. I ate 15 slices of pizza from 15 different places.
That's a cause I can get behind.
Terribly unhealthy, but I felt great. I mean, you're walking everywhere too.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, I gotta have fuel, and my fuel is pizza. But my favorite spots, I guess, if you are looking for like wood fired or Neapolitan, I think Settabelle's is pretty good. I think Tiama's pretty good. Pizza No-No is good. I would say my favorite New York slice is Villaggio in South Salt Lake.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Because I did a best of Small Lake City on pizza places, and that was one that came up that I didn't even know about. And every time it comes up in conversations,
I will tell you, Villaggio is a recent discovery of mine because of what you did.
Really? Interesting.
I kept it. That was part of it. So I had a friend be like, you need to go to Villaggio. And then I had another friend be like, you need to try out Villaggio if you like New York style pizza. Because I'm a snowmobile pizza fan too.
Okay.
I really like snowmobile. I like what they do. They have like a sourdough crust. Fantastic. But people keep telling me to go to Villaggio, and then I saw your poll and people kept saying Villaggio, and I was like, maybe I should go. And dude, I connected with the owner. Honestly, one of the most hysterical people I've ever met in my life, because he is a classic New Yorker.
Like, it's not an act. This is him.
He will tell it like it is. The things he's allowed to say, and nobody like, it was a room full of customers, and we were just there kind of chatting it up. And the words that he said, I was like, I thought those words were banned.
Like, is it?
But when you say it in a New York accent and you've been to prison, there's something that like seriously, this dude is the coolest, kindest human being. Like, would give you the shirt off his back, but will also like, if you're ordering too slow, he'll be like, yeah, what the F do you want? He'll get like,
just very New York.
He'll be your best friend one second, and then the next second be like, let's go. Like, I don't have all day. Yeah, it's fantastic. And their pizza's phenomenal. They do like a grandma pie, which is a New York thing as well. That's square and a little thicker. It's like, I guess it would be in between, like if you got like thin crust and like Detroit style pizza, it's like in between that. I love Detroit style pizza.
I do love Detroit style pizza.
We don't really have a lot of good Detroit style pizza here, so
there's like 3 places and none are amazing.
Yeah, I won't mention any of them, but yeah, just a fantastic place. But one of those examples of a guy who is not from here and just freaking loves Utah. like loves looking at the mountains, loves starting. Like he was telling me, we talked for probably an hour, and I don't think either of us had an hour to talk, but we talked for an hour. He, loves starting his day looking at the mountains and just loves the community here in Utah, and wanted to bring something that was part of him here. And that's what most of these restaurant owners are doing, is like, I can't find this here. That's what's so cool about Utah too. Like if you've ever been to Los Angeles or New York, they'd have everything.
Yeah.
Every single culture has moved there and started something. And that's actually really cool. But here in Utah, there's just so much opportunity for people to come in and be like, I'm trying to think of a really good example, but like Señor Pollo Mexican Grill, he was like, he was raised in Mexico and was missing this like Sinaloa style chicken, where they like take the chicken, they have it, but they keep it together and then they lay it flat and grill it whole. And it's a combination of seasoning, and it's really, really like genuine Mexican food. But he was like, I was just missing what from home. Yeah. I don't want to live there anymore, but I want the food from there. I love my culture, but I want to raise my family in Utah and I miss it. Yeah. And that's what so many people are doing here. It's cool to be in Utah as it's growing. If you bought a house 5 years ago, it's even cooler. But it's an honor to be able to just be around these people who are just sharing their passion with people. Totally. Be like, this is my mom's tzatziki recipe. If you take like, what is it? Lamb and feta at Hall Pass downtown. Jeff, Pat Mides, just all time great person. And that he's like, yeah, this is my grandmother's tzatziki sauce, because he's part Tongan, part Greek. It's just so cool. I love it. And everyone has a story here. And there are a bunch of soulless chains, but you should avoid them and eat local.
I agree.
Yeah.
Want to pivot one last time to hockey. So obviously you like Red Wings fan. I imagine that's a part of being in the Midwest for a little bit, then having your mission in Detroit. But
my dad's from Grand Rapids. I have Midwest roots. He was raised Catholic in the Midwest, so I'm a Notre Dame football fan. I'm on all Detroit sports down the list. I watch them all, and I watch pretty much every game.
Got it.
So
So hockey's here now. I don't even know what % through the season we are, enough to kind of see what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
I mean, what is there to look forward to? What are you kind of seeing with your own hockey brain?
Yeah.
Your 2 cents.
Yeah. So we started off pretty hot, and then we've kind of cooled off a little bit. Yeah. And that was expected. So if you're not into hockey, first of all, you should just go to a game. Shout out to the Utah Grizzlies, ECHL team here. They play at the Maverick Center. It is a really cheap way to watch hockey. And there's something about being in a barn or a stadium, for those people that don't know, that smells a little bit like hockey. Mm-hmm. Like there's a little stench in there.
Yeah. Like it's been broken.
You're like, there's some sweaty dudes in here hitting each other on skates. Like there's something beautiful about that. In Alaska, I grew up with the Alaska Aces, who are also an ECHL team. And what's funny is my dad was doing the same thing. Like the team started and they needed somebody to this was in the early 2000s. So they needed somebody to come on, and they had this really revolutionary tool on the website where it would update the score live. Oh, and so they needed somebody to run it, which is so to our minds right now where we're like,
what do you mean?
They didn't have that? Yeah. But same kind of vibe. So it's cool to be like, okay, well, I'm following my dad's footsteps a little bit. I didn't join the military, but I am heavily involved with local hockey scene. So to kind of start out, if you're not familiar with hockey, go to a Grizzlies game. Really cheap, cool atmosphere, decent food, and it's just fun. It's a fun environment. They do a good job. And soon they will be affiliated with the NHL team. That's the plan, is for them to, if you're familiar with other sports, I guess basketball or European soccer, there's levels, and the ECHL is the lowest tier of professional hockey in North America. The AHL is the second lowest tier, or is the mid tier, and then the NHL is the high tier, and they develop players through the ECHL team and the AHL team to get up. And
we just called someone up from, was it Arizona team?
Yeah, from the Roadrunners.
That's right.
Yeah, and they'll be moved soon to, Reno, I think, which is kind of a weird move. But we just called up Maverick Lamoureux, who's a defenseman, because we had some injuries. So he's super fun. Something to go look at if you're kind of just getting into the sport. Like I said, go to a Grizzlies game, maybe buy the game NHL if you're a gamer. Just buy chill and play, and then you'll understand the game quicker. I say that because like when I wanted to get into sports when I was a kid, my mom would just like get me the game and be like, play it so you can understand it.
Yeah, like I know everything now.
Yeah, and then you understand all the rules and you kind of know some players and you can tell if you would like playing it or not. But things to look forward to. The team should compete for a playoff spot. There's been a couple defensive injuries, which is not good because our goaltending isn't phenomenal. I love our goaltenders, so I don't want to speak ill of them, but we need some help on the back end. So they called him Maverick Lamoureux. He's 19 years old, young, which is super young for the NHL. It takes sometimes, especially for hockey players, it just takes a while to develop. And that's why you have all these lower leagues so they can go and play and develop their skills within the organization. So players to look for, I would say Mikhail Sergachev's a great defenseman that's really fun to watch. If you're looking for more like electric, offensive, high scoring stuff, Logan Cooley is super fast and fun. Like, he's just fun to watch. It's fun to watch him skate because he's just so fast and skilled. Same with Dylan Gunther, kind of a similar type player. Clayton Keller's our captain. He's
a baller.
He's another guy who's really fun to watch, and he's a little scrappier than you would expect him to be because he's not huge, and he is more of a skill guy, but not afraid to throw the body. Hockey's just great. You'll very rarely go to a game and not see somebody act in a literal fight, which is just fantastic. It's
something for everyone.
It is, and I've noticed just from my page and be engaging a lot with Utah in the podcast. Some people don't like hockey in Utah. First of all, you're wrong if you don't like hockey. Second of all, that's okay, but you should give it a chance.
Yeah.
Like, it's so fun to watch. But yeah, they're floating around 500, so about equally as many wins as losses, and kind of need to turn things up a little bit. So because they start off really fun, like they start off with a big win over the Blackhawks. I was at that game in the Delta Center. Delta Center is a weird experience if you've never been there because it's not built for hockey.
Yeah.
For those of you watching, hockey arenas are built like bowls, and basketball arenas are built like cups. So they're built a lot more up and not like out and up because they put a hockey rink in a basketball stadium, and the basketball court is a lot shorter. It's a lot smaller than a hockey rink.
Like there's some weird angles if you're in the upper
very
bowl.
weird angles.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to go to a game, just like, first of all, if you can just get in the stadium, just go. But if you're looking for a better vantage point, don't sit on the upper level behind the nets.
Yes.
Because you won't be able to see one of the nets. They're renovating that, so that's exciting. Like Ryan Smith's plan is to do half of the stadium renovated this offseason, half the stadium next offseason. I'm still a little skeptical on them being able to turn that into an NHL stadium just because it's so difficult. It's a completely different type of building. A couple weeks ago I was in Detroit and went to a Red Wings game, and being able to see them that close back to back, like being in the Delta Center than being in Little Caesars Arena, so different.
Yeah.
There's so many more seats too, which is good. So it'll benefit the Jazz. But if you're just a sports fan in general, hockey's just freaking fantastic. I'm a huge sports fan of every sport, but
hockey's a special one.
Yeah. And I played football my entire life, and I played baseball, and played a little bit of soccer, ran track, and did wrestling, and ADHD.
I was the same way.
Yeah. But I played pond hockey a lot growing up, and that was just, I loved it. So, yeah. If you're looking to learn how to skate, there's opportunities for that.
Yeah, go
there's
to Steiner, go to the Olympic Oval, go figure it out.
Exactly.
That one NHL won't help you on PlayStation or Xbox.
No, it won't. And it's a little bit of a slap in the face when you decide to skate the first time, but man, it's so freaking fun.
Humbling.
It's exciting. So, and it's hockey season now. I get that it's football season. Today we're actually filming this the week of the Holy War.
I know.
So people are kind of focused on that, but I think that general interest in the hockey team will grow a lot after football season's over.
Yeah.
So after the college football playoff, after the Super Bowl, especially once you get into the NFL playoffs, people kind of start like they're watching the playoffs, but they start turning their focus to other things like basketball and hockey. So it'll be interesting to see how the Jazz fans and the Utah hockey fans, how that mixes and how that clashes.
I agree.
Because I would expect hockey to cannibalize a couple Jazz fans, especially because they're not doing
how Jazz season's looking to be. It's going to be a just race to the bottom.
They're going for Cooper Flanagan, and that's okay. It's okay to tank for certain players. It worked for the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama, so you can't argue with the strategy.
So
Yeah.
we'll see next year. We'll see
The
how it
hockey
all
club
goes.
is not doing that, and they shouldn't
Yes.
be doing that. So
Yeah,
they
we got it
should
going.
they should be competing for at least being on just outside of the playoffs, if not a wild card team. So
Yeah, I'm hoping we do. That'd be really fun to have. Is like because I think everybody has this like Vegas Knights expectation. They're like,
you should.
They came in and
Yeah.
did like it's like listen, that was a whole different. I mean,
Whole different process.
yeah, a whole different process.
They got an expansion, which means they get to choose basically their entire roster of second and third liners from other teams. So you can protect a certain when you do an expansion like Vegas got, like Seattle got. You can protect certain players, and then some players aren't protected, and that team can pick them in their draft.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But like, I mean, it has to
It is
happen
crazy.
somehow.
But we got a relocated team, and technically didn't even get relocated. We started a completely new organization. Whereas like Winnipeg, who just destroyed us a couple years ago, was moved from Winnipeg to Arizona, relocated, and now they're relocated from Arizona to Utah. So we technically got beat by ourselves,
We beat ourselves.
if you think about it.
Yeah.
We didn't lose.
Inception.
Yeah.
Hockeyception.
But yeah, it's a very different process. Like they inherited an organization that has been struggling for a long time.
Totally.
So the rebuild is still happening.
Yeah.
Like don't
Lots-
expect us to
lots
win
of
a Stanley
optimism.
Cup within
Yeah.
the next 2 or 3
It's
years.
things are looking up.
Yeah,
Get your
absolutely.
stock in while you can.
Absolutely.
But so 2 questions I always ask every guest before we end.
Yeah.
You kind of alluded to one, and we can go back to it. But if you could have someone on the Small Lake City podcast, who would you want to have? You mentioned
Yeah.
it was Julia from World Trade
I would say
Center.
you should reach out to. She just had a kid, so I'm not sure if she'd be available. But the World Trade Center is a fantastic organization.
Yeah.
They're doing so much for Utah.
Yeah, I used to know one of the previous leaders, who was actually one of my old bishops.
Yeah.
What's his name? Bryce Miller? Something Miller? No, it's not Bryce.
It's a really good way. Like that's good. Now, like if you're looking for kind of restaurant owners, I would say you should have Paul Wiley, who owns Penny Ann's Cafe, Moochie's Charlie's. His
I don't know, but he had Penny Ann's.
So his
and
family
Moochie's.
started Penny Ann's,
Yeah.
and then they became involved with Moochie's and Charlie's throughout as the years kind of went
Okay.
on.
Yeah, because Penny Ann's
great
iconic.
person. Yeah,
And Moochie's iconic.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like just a really cool guy and great family, and that's all like family run organization. Nothing really corporate about it. It's fun. Jeffrey Patmides, he's involved with Hall Pass downtown.
Cool.
And he owns the barbecue spot in there, Hog and Tradition. Yeah, so in a food sense, those are really fascinating people. Jesus from Señor Pollo, he's a firecracker, and he's from Mexico, and just like really good person doing cool things. Those would be Ryan Smith is my next one.
Ryan. One like I know. I mean, I don't know, but I know one day I will have Ryan, and there will be a lot of people like, "You finally did it. I
Yeah.
wanted this." Even the third, well, I guess technically second, because it was a 2-part episode. My friend Cam Nance, he's like, "I want Ryan Smith." I'm like, "I want Ryan Smith too."
Yeah.
But we'll get it.
Ryan Smith, longtime listener of the Small Lake City podcast. Come on.
Yeah. Just do it. You got time. And then secondly, if people want to find out more about Utah Food Finds, NHL Utah, your own marketing consultancy, what's the best ways to find information?
Yeah, at Utah Food Finds on Instagram, at NHL Utah on Instagram. If you go to Utah Food Finds, if you don't follow me and you just find a restaurant that you want to follow on there, that's even better. Just go support local. Like that's my biggest thing. I was saying before, I came just wearing like Koala pants based in Sugar House, Trail Utility shirt based in Rose Park, Sway hat based in Salt Lake City, and I have a nomadic backpack and a jacket, and they're based. I think they're based in like South Jordan.
Yeah.
Like support local. We have so much cool stuff here.
Yeah.
You could outfit yourself head to toe in just Utah based stuff, and you can fill your body with things that are just based in Utah.
Buy local, support local.
Exactly.
There's too many good things to be. There's ways you can support with still doing the things you usually do.
Exactly. And not necessarily like changing your lifestyle, but changing your habits to like, oh, where I put my money actually matters.
Yeah.
And sending money to companies that are owned by BlackRock, probably not something that you want to do.
Exactly. Jeff Bezos will be fine.
Yes, he'll be okay. I use Amazon all the time, so I can't talk too much about it. But like seriously, there's so much cool stuff here. And if you're in Utah, you should just feel really grateful that you live here. It's a cool place.
Couldn't agree more. I've seen way too much of this country to disagree.
Same.
But Michael, Pleasure sitting down and talking to you. Excited for football, excited for more food finds.
Yeah.
If you don't follow him, make sure you do on so many ways, because we got to support all of these great stories and hear more about them.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, homie. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Salt Lake City Podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, review, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends. And we'll catch you next week. We'll see you there.